Hello, hello, my beautiful friends. It's Izabela here, the World Messenger, and I have another epic live with very awesome guest that is joining us from the New York area. He is the champion of education talent. He is also author, and he is author of phenomenal book 12 Things That Wanted to Teach You in the High School but Couldn't. Epic book that I had a chance to get my fingers on this past weekend. And also, I'm just an amazing human being that wants to really make tremendous change and help with so many of us in efforts to create and impact new generation of leaders. Without further ado, please welcome Robert Anderson Jr. Robert, how are you?
I'm great, Isabel. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You have so much already accomplished in your bio, so if I miss something, I just want to use a little bit of highlights just for sake of for today. But do you mind just telling us just a little bit about yourself? I mean, how did you get where you are today, and what that journey looked like, and why you're so passionate about leadership as I am?
I would say my journey began when I was 12 years old, and uh, my passion for sport really gave me an edge and a desire to want to win. But I realized that my desire to win wasn't enough. Uh, So as I started learning about personal training and physical training and working out, I was completely dedicated, but it didn't really matter how dedicated I was if I couldn't ignite a fire amongst my friends and my teammates. So around 12 years old, that was the first time I acquired a leadership book. And at that point, I started reading about Tony Robbins, and my mom started giving me books on leadership and started speaking to me about different seminars and opportunities. At that point, there wasn't really online, but there were certainly opportunities for team building. And over the course of my career as an athlete, uh, directly moving into the classroom as an educator, I never lost my desire to lead. And over the course of now closing in on almost 3 decades, my desire to become a more impactful leader, better communicator, and having the ability to find what's best in people is what's been my trademark, as an educator, as a trainer, and now serving exclusively as a executive coach and in diversity, equity, and education, running a diversity, equity, and educational firm. It's my ability to, and our team's ability to connect with people and take them from point A to point B, and really achieve the things that they desire in their life.
That's fantastic. And it seems like everything always starts with that wanted to be pro athlete and ending up playing pro sports and doing so many fun things. So do you mind sharing with the audience what sports do you play? I see some amazing poster behind you there of two legends together that I absolutely love and admire. So do you mind sharing? Is it basketball?
So growing up, I grew up in a town in Yorktown, New York, in Westchester County, that was crazy about the game of lacrosse, and the game of lacrosse became paramount in our town, and we're known for it. And I really cut my teeth as a football player. So I spent my fall and summer training for the game of football, and spent my off time, really my off time, believe it or not, into the game of lacrosse. And as I went through my football career in the college, I fell back into the game of lacrosse, which I have a deep passion for. And at that point, that's really where my leadership, um, I would say, went to the next level, because having the ability to play the game of football at a high level and at the university level, and having opportunities to play overseas was fantastic. But it was really through the game of lacrosse and our family's commitment to the game of lacrosse that I would say we have been able to bring beautiful people, families, and communities together, and that's really given me an opportunity to expand my contact with people, and has really expanded my network as far as sport is concerned, for sure. But it's been through the game of lacrosse.
That's fantastic. I would never guess that. I thought it's for sure basketball or possibly football, but now you spill the beans. Now we know. And lacrosse is very popular in Colorado, specifically university that I'm affiliated with. University of Denver has a great lacrosse team. So it's just something new for me when I came to US that I discovered. So I'm just so glad you mentioned that and had a chance to travel the world as a result of it. I'm assuming also in Europe to some of European tournaments.
Europe has been a space where we have not
Oh,
dug into as far as the game of lacrosse, but certainly nationally, without question. I've had the privilege of being able to work in New York, to California, and a number of states in between. The game is evolving, and not
yeah.
just the game, but I would say the needs. And what we're seeing is that we have a grassroots effort, and I just became the board, a member of the board to a collegiate showcase called Rise, where we're bringing minority youth from around the country together and having an opportunity to perform and play in front of potential college coaches. So there has been a groundswell within the game and a need within the game to help bring more inclusivity and more conversations. And quite honestly, more opportunities to learn from each other, because it has been a white dominated game, if you would, um, as far as race is concerned. But the unity and the brotherhood and the fraternity is incredibly inclusive and incredibly positive, loving and supporting. The community, it's the lacrosse community is unlike anything I've ever experienced in sport, and something I am wildly grateful to be a part of.
That's fantastic. And it's so interesting because a lot of times people don't understand, and I always me wanted to be, professional athlete and be involved in sports. Fortunately, did not play out. But then educator like yourself, and trying to impact the kids and to be not only to fulfill their own dreams, but also to be these amazing leaders. It's beautiful to see how this tapestry of mixed things from different points of view all come always together, and how this new generation, not only of pro athletes, but also pro leaders is created. So do you mind sharing a little bit of that roller coaster ride that you had, and how you arrived to that moment where you are right now with amazing gift and a great vision that I can't wait for listeners to hear?
Growing up, I had the privilege of growing up in Westchester County, as I had mentioned, in Yorktown, New York. And it is a beautiful town. It's a beautiful suburb. And I had incredible friends, family, teachers, education. My mom and dad created a life for my sister and I that I'm so proud of. I had incredible relationships with my grandparents, and have had the opportunity to travel around the world because of my grandparents and my grandfather's commitment to entrepreneurship. And I say all of that to say that I didn't get a free pass. I didn't
Mm,
get a free pass when it came to being a Black man growing up in the world that we're living in. I didn't get a free pass as far as being a man that believes and loves people. But the reality is that we have forces at work that don't believe in the righteousness of people. And we have issues at hand in America where you are still judged um, by your
mm,
skin color and not by your character. And I didn't get a free pass, regardless of my upbringing, regardless of my parenting, regardless of my life experiences. And that led me into the classroom. And once sport was concluded, I knew that I wanted to be an educator, and I never left my desire to want to lead as an athlete. So I started a personal training business. And simultaneously, as I was teaching, I had a personal training business, which really took full front over the summers and during off times from school. And that led me to having opportunities to train professional athletes, which led to me speaking locally and across the country, which led to me having the opportunity to work with the top 100 and Fortune 500 executive coaches in the capacity of health, nutrition, and wellness. So simultaneously, I was building a reputation and a brand over the course of now 20 years of education, speaking, and executive coaching. And now that I've left education and something that I'm still so deeply passionate about, I left it out of a need, a true need to want to influence and impact people, because our system itself is broken. The educational system is fractured, but the people inside of our educational system are not. And they're looking for a better way. And they're looking for a better way to lead. They're looking for a better way to be more impactful. And they want to contribute. And I knew that my path in education and my path in leadership could not change or move the needle if I continue to stay the path inside of a broken system. That led me to combining my years of personal development, combining my years of speaking across the country and of leadership training with executive coaches to develop programs that create educational leaders. And an educational leader isn't someone that just sits in the classroom. And we have seen wide and true how important it is to become an educational leader outside of the classroom, in the corporate space, and certainly in the private sector as well. So becoming an educational leader isn't something that is just pigeonholed for the classroom. It's really a necessity for our humanity.
Wow, I love what you just said. It is necessity for our humanity. That is so profound and so deep. And for everybody listening and watching, guys, I really want you to take a note of that, because you are parents and grandparents and you have the children, and we know the system doesn't work. And this is a great opportunity now when we know more. What do we do? How do we make a transformation? How do we make something meaningful that's going to last? And I love your mission. And I just love that you come also from sports and high level C-suite engagements and understanding also very well the corporate, specifically corporate America, and how that navigates, right? Because we cannot fix one isolated part of sector without codepending and integrating with everything else, right? So I just wanted just to kudos you, and how full circle back, you published the book. And do you mind sharing what was behind that book and what is the book all about? Because I wanted to also listeners to hear, specifically my great educators that are out there working so hard with definitely most insane situation right now during the COVID, and trying to just survive before they can even really say they're thriving, just because it's just like one obstacle after another. So please share your solution.
At the height of COVID, I wanted to give, and I was conducting a number of virtual talks and meetings, and I was having conversations with executives. I was having virtual talks with athletic teams. I was speaking to teams in school districts and universities on an exit strategy and best practices for their students, best practices for staying at home and managing your mental health. And I was having these private conversations, these virtual conversations and talks. And one of my daily practices is meditation, and I actively meditate on my daily walk. And on my walk, I was asking, what can I give? Because the virtual talks and the virtual conversations in private meetings were fantastic, and they were impactful, and they were creating exit strategies for universities, athletes, and they were creating mental health solutions for corporate folks in their space. But it wasn't impactful enough in my mind and in my heart. So I wanted to create something that really could move the needle, and a gift to something that extended well beyond my immediate reach and voice. So that led me to writing a book, The 12 Things They Wanted to Teach You in High School But Couldn't. It's a personal development book that speaks to creating an educational leader. And educational leaders are someone that are empathetic, they're self-aware, and they're curious. And in my book, I outlined the 12 things that you can do, that we can do as people, to create empathetic, self-aware, and curious people to help them overcome all of the stressors that we've heard about for decades and decades, but we've never actually addressed them in our schools. How to overcome anxiety, creating an atmosphere of love and inclusion, how to nutritionally take care of yourself. What do you do when doubt starts to creep in? So I outlined the 12 things that leaders that have a desire to become an educational leader, someone that's empathetic, self-aware, and curious, that they can impart on themselves so then they can ultimately share those with the people that they're leading.
That is brilliant. And we're having here a couple of people sharing their thoughts. Marco is wishing you congratulations on your accomplishments so far, and things you were talking about earlier. But also we have a Lucian here that says that it's really hard to get admiration and respect that you were mentioning here to create something meaningful in such a harsh and racially adverse, toxic environments. And here's a spot on. Thank you for bringing that up, because that is why we have the sense of urgency, right? And that's why the book was so necessary to capture and help people to really lead and give them the tool and framework so that they can easily digest and distill. You distilled so much, and I just love the way you made it happen. So do you mind elaborate a little bit more on that?
So I wrote the book in 5 months, and we published it in 8 months total. So over the course of 8 months, because of the need and because of the fracture and because of the pain that's taking place, and the first initiative is to understand that is to come to a space that people are good. I mentioned earlier that I have had the privilege of seeing all of the beauty in the world, but I am not and did not receive a free pass. I grew up with my father as a police officer. My mom was a social worker. I have a long line of officers and people in leadership positions in law enforcement, and our family is committed to positive law enforcement. And to say that, again, I didn't receive a free pass, and I have seen the tragedies firsthand, and I have experienced near tragedy myself. So I understand the depth of hate, but I also understand the depth of love. The first space that we need the first space that anyone, any executive, anyone in a position of leadership needs to do is acknowledge that we have a problem. To ignore it or to assume that people know where you stand is wrong. The first step is acknowledging that we have a problem. The next step is acknowledging if you have the tools necessary to do something about it. Because again, I believe that people are good, and regardless of the circumstances that I have experienced and the things, the tragedies in my life that I have seen firsthand, that's an echo that my mom and my dad have always conveyed to me. And understanding that people are good, after you acknowledge that there's a problem, do you have the tools necessary to do something about it? Are you equipped to have uncomfortable conversations, to bring to light something that makes people leery? And if you don't have those tools, then we need as leaders to take the next step, which is bring someone in that does have the tools after you acknowledge that we have a problem, or we have to start to train. If you do have the tools, we just have to start to train people to have conversations to make people more comfortable. I'll give you a real life example. I was speaking to I'll give you two examples. I was speaking to an executive group. First, I'll give you a sport team called, and they said, Rob, we're interested in doing something for Black History Month. And one of the things that we would like to do is acknowledge that we have a month to celebrate Black history? What are some ideas and concepts that we can interject into our daily routine that don't necessarily upset the apple cart or throw things off? I said, you guys listen to music? And they said, yeah, of course. Every practice we listen to music. Why don't you play Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech during warm-ups instead of playing your music?
Wow.
You're acknowledging that you have a problem. You're acknowledging that there are solutions, and maybe you don't necessarily have them, but most importantly, you're acknowledging that you're willing to step into a space of recognition, just recognizing that we have people and leaders that are worth listening to. And just that shift allowed the team to sit down and have conversations that they wouldn't have even thought were maybe even necessary, because so many of the athletes had never even heard his speech. Because growing up in school, it was Rosa Parks and Dr. King, and it was I Have a Dream. They didn't even realize that it was a full blown speech and talk, not just a line that was referenced. In the corporate space, I had a conversation with a group of executives, and I asked them, or they asked me, Rob, what are some of the things that we could do to help bring some clarification or something that doesn't necessarily offend people, because we know that there's a problem. We don't really know what to do about it. And I said, well, how many of your folks have Black or minority friends? Because we know the data. The data is that 40% of white people do not have a friend that is in the minority race. They do not have a friend that's a minority. And we know that proximity breeds care,
Yes.
and distance breeds fear.
Very true.
Proximity breeds care, distance breeds fear. So
beautiful. Sorry, I just wanted to pause again for a second there. That is so powerful, guys. Again, golden nugget that should be in forefront in everything we do. And let alone, as you said, not just in the school and education system, but also in working environment. How many of those co-workers do you have in specific industries that you can surround yourself with, let alone the friends outside of that environment? So please continue.
So knowing the statistics that 40% of white people, beautiful white friends and family members, do not have a friend or someone outside of their place of work as a friend. So how can we interject it? Well, we can do a number of things. For lunch, can you order from a minority-based or minority-owned business? Can you order lunch from someplace else? Can you have a conversation? Can you have a conversation instead of lunch? Can you connect with can you connect with a school district? Can you connect with a minority-owned business and have a working lunch? We are all on Zoom, and people are partially working in unity, having their whole office in. But can you have a conversation or connect with a Black-owned business and just have a working lunch over Zoom, and you're just having a talk? And it doesn't need to be anything specific. It could be about the Super Bowl. It could those conversations and introductions could simply just be about kids. It could be about where you went to school, and just allowing people to enter into your everyday existence, into your everyday life. Do we have the ability to see someone and say hello and just set a standard of just speaking to people? Of course we have masks, and of course it's challenging, but can we set an initiative to just make sure that we're saying hello? instead of
Yes. Yeah.
instead of crossing the street when we see someone that doesn't necessarily look like us. So
And
when we
fearing
talk
or
about
judging
diversity and
people.
inclusion,
Yes.
when we talk about diversity, inclusion, and education, it doesn't necessarily need to be something that turns your office upside down, and it certainly doesn't need to be something that is a complete turn from your norm. But can we acknowledge that we have a problem? Can we connect with folks and share a meal and perhaps order from a Black owned business for lunch and experience a different entity into our world? Or can we just set an initiative just to make sure that we're saying hello and that we at least know people's names if they're going to work in our buildings?
Wow, wow, wow. It's so enlightening and sad and inspiring in the same time how much we need to go back to basics, Robert.
Yes.
Basics to back to humanity, basics to eye contact and basic manners that we're taught in our families with our upbringing, that every human being is worth it and counts and makes difference and is here with a purpose, and that everybody have their own dreams and desire to fulfill, and that we should acknowledge each other, not only just in passing, but also in every encounter we have through the wife. And right now, you're spot on. That is more than ever desired and needed. And frankly, has the same sense of urgency. And I'm sorry to hear that even despite of your upbringing and stellar education and everything you've been doing, you ran into situations where you were treated in improperly, inhumanely, in discriminatory, racist way. I have to call it, guys, and I have to also say this is not the way to move forward, because doesn't solve, it will never solve the core issues if we turn the blind eye. Doesn't solve also if we go eye for eye for someone who survived the war and seen and worked with so many survivors of the war. That's not solution either. So right now, I love what Lucian also says, that ignorance prompts the fear as well. You're spot on. Yet it's not an excuse to be racist or sexist, but especially racist. And usually all of those things are interconnected. And again, proximity versus distance, as you mentioned. We also have a Mary here that says it's a really great one. We should have all our successes can bring in the desire at all times to connect. Thank you, Mary. This is so beautiful. It's great to hear that, because on the end of the day, everybody's success is connected to other people. Nobody succeeds in life alone. And you don't have no idea who will be your biggest champion, your biggest cheerleader, and who you may need one day. And it's not that you should be living that way, because I might need something when so playing the games, I will do this for you and you will do that for me. But on genuine human level, when we distill and take all those barriers off, what do we have? Please share.
When at its core, we have four needs, and we have four basic human needs, and they're the needs. These aren't desires, these aren't wants, but they're needs. And when
Yes.
you understand the four essential human needs that we all share, you can begin to connect on a deeper level. Leaders in HR space, or leaders of organizations, and certainly of universities and schools. Once you understand the four essential human needs, you can connect with people and have deeper conversations and align them through my definition of leadership, aligning the people that you're leading to become the best version of themselves. And the first of our four essential human needs is a need for certainty. We have a need to make sure that when we walk out of the house, that the sky isn't going to fall, that when we walk into our job, that it isn't going to, we aren't going to be fired at the drop of the hat. We have a need for certainty to make sure that we have a home and a roof over our heads. And we are going to meet that need for certainty in a positive, negative, or neutral way. For some folks, in meeting that need for certainty might be physically taking care of yourself, or by eating, because eating a certain way is always going to make you feel a certain way. If you have an extra piece of chocolate cake, or if you know that you're going to drink, it's going to give you that sense of certainty. And the second need that we all share is a need for uncertainty. And that need for uncertainty drives us to do things or to experience things, because if we knew that what was going to happen, when it was going to happen, as it was going to happen all the time, we would be bored out of our mind. And some of us have that need for uncertainty. We put that at the top of our list, and we're going to meet that in a positive, negative, or neutral way. And that need for uncertainty can be met by traveling. So having a sense or having a position at work that allows you to travel every couple of weeks can be wildly exciting. And that's a positive way to meet that need for uncertainty. So as we're hiring and bringing people on board, understand who you're hiring and understand how to meet their needs. And then a negative way that you can meet uncertainty is by constantly leaving a job or constantly having to go to the next thing. Or meeting a need for uncertainty could be in the way that we share.
I love the way you put all this together.
In the way that we share our bodies, or being too giving with our bodies, because we think that is gives us that need for uncertainty. And then we have a deep need for loving connection, and that is a need that, again, it could be at the top of our list, and we know that people are crying that have a deep-seated need for connection. But again, we're going to meet that in a positive, negative, or neutral way. You can meet your need. Most people, unfortunately, settle for connection because love is too scary. So our need for our positive way to meet our need for love could be in conversing and having conversations, or joining a space similar to Clubhouse, which allows you to have that need for connection. Or unfortunately, a negative space might be in, again, doing things outside of the norm that you think will bring positive attention. We see that with youth kids, where they post unflattering pictures, and we see it with adults and at the corporate space, where they express that need for loving connection by being a dictator, by being the authoritative. And really what they want is just to be connected, but they think that they're showing their love by being that person that points the finger. And then that fourth human need that we all share is significance. And we have a deep-seated need to give beyond ourselves, because human nature, as we know it, and anyone that's a parent can echo this, we do more for other people than we will ever do for ourselves. And we, again, will meet that need in a positive, negative, or neutral way. So once we understand human needs, and we can apply human needs psychology, the need for certainty, the need for uncertainty, loving connection, and for significance, now people will always put one of those needs at the top. And the moment that you can understand the needs of someone, you can immediately identify what position in a corporation is going to be best for them. And certainly in a university or an education, you'll know exactly how to interact with that person, because someone that has a deep-seated need for certainty is going to act in accounting. A deep-seated need for certainty is probably their number one thing, because they know that those numbers are going to line up if they have a specific, they follow a specific formula. Let alone someone that's in accounting, we don't want someone in accounting if their most essential need is uncertainty. That person is going to probably leave if that's their number one need. So we need to put them in a position of travel. We need to put them in a position of being able to experience different things. And once you understand human needs psychology, now you can start to have different and more impactful conversations, because those conversations with initiatives and what you want to bring to an organization can speak directly to the hearts and the spirits of the people that you're leading, once you know what their need is.
That is so powerful, and I love that you walk us through that, from from a basic, again, human level, but also from spiritual, educational, and integrating level as a whole, as a community, as all, right? Because that's what's really all about, and that's what we're striving for. That's why we're recognizing disconnect, and that needs to be repaired. That needs to be mentally switched. That needs to change in corporations, in educational systems, absolutely everywhere. And I love, actually, Lucian, I'm so glad you brought up back this point, because that's something I also wanted to address. So I'm going to address it now with you, because it is so true. It's sad that we needed to put 1 month of recognition of Black history, and you spot on. It is not acceptable, and it's not enough, and it's not good, and we're not going to be really looking at this as a norm to be just once a month as a talking, as a just a nice quote unquote favor or highlight. But then when that is over, what happens? Goes sideways, and we go back to quote unquote the new normal or pre-existing normal. That is definitely not enough, and it's a time to really look at what we're doing rest of the year and what we're doing every day, what are we doing every single day on that level, so that we are dealing with everything that we're experiencing at the moment in such a healthy, compassionate, and loving way. Everybody, as you mentioned, wants to be accepted. Everybody wants to be loved, but they want to be accepted as who they are. And why we need to force upon the change, specifically for change, where it's unnecessary for people to change, when actually it's necessary for systems to change. And speaking of that, obviously we're talking about some really amazing systems that we're looking at and impacting and changing with efforts of like-minded individuals. And forefront and core and center is education and future generation of leaders. So Robert, do you mind a little bit giving a flavor of what that looks like and how you are with like-minded individuals, but specifically you leading that torch and disrupting and innovating that space, my friend?
So my firm, Win by Design, has been created to create educational leaders, and it's a term that we haven't used, and it's a term that we have created. My team and I, and becoming an educational leader is someone, again, that is empathetic, curious, and self-aware. So in the space of diversity, inclusion, and education, we are creating spaces and opportunities within our leadership community, and certainly within our programs, where we are having conversations with corporate executives, with university leaders, and certainly at the educational at the high school level as well, to develop a different thought process of what a leader looks like. What does she sound like? What does she do? How does she react? How does she open the doors for conversations to take place?
Yes.
And it begins by recognizing and appreciating that there is a problem. The second space is to recognize that you do not have the answers. The moment that we recognize that there's a problem, that you don't have the answers, you allow your leaders, the folks that you're leading, to come to you with solutions. And as they're walking to you with solutions, now we are engaging in a dialogue.
Yes.
That dialogue is going to open up conversations to find the solutions to heal.
Yes.
It begins with leaders recognizing that we have a problem. And if we cannot continue to move forward in the corporate space and believe it's somebody else's responsibility, because diversity, inclusion, and education isn't only about bringing or hiring minorities or allowing minorities to come into spaces of opportunity. It's also educating the people that you're leading. We have 260 million people that have been diagnosed with depression and anxiety.
Yes.
Nearly 1 in 8 people have thought or have considered suicide.
Suicide.
If
Such true.
we if you are in a position of leadership in the corporate space, you are not receiving the best of your employees if they are riddled with anxiety, depression, or thinking about committing suicide. You are not receiving the best of that person. So diversity, inclusion, and education isn't just about bringing minorities to the forefront. It's allowing conversations to begin to take place. It's acknowledging that we have a problem, and then what are we going to do about it? And we have leaders in place that aren't necessarily comfortable with bringing this up, and they're good people. They just don't know what to do. And that's where my firm steps in, and we begin to facilitate the conversations, but create the solutions, because everybody wants to feel good and everybody wants to be happy. In reality, we have never been taught, after 14,000 hours in a kindergarten through 12th grade setting, how to feel good. We have never
Yes.
been taught how to actually be happy.
Very,
So
very
if
true.
we are not, if we haven't had those opportunities, where are we going to learn it when we have to start adulting? And the answer is
Create
we're
a new
not.
generation
We're not.
of same
And it's
same.
clear that we're not.
Yes. Yes. Wow, that is extremely powerful. Again, I love, as a passionate educator myself, and always looking at what future generations are inheriting. Obviously, founder of Legacy Leaders and specifically Legacy Leaders Show, I always bring this question because it's like, why are you here? What's your purpose? Is your just purpose to do 9 to 5 and go home, drink a beer, and not even talk to your wife or family or kids, and not parent and do anything, sit on the couch? Is it also doing something meaningful and beneficial outside of your own home? If a lot of people don't even know what to do and how to do it inside their own household, let alone in their community, and definitely on a national scale. So it is also rewiring and looking from different position, but also it's like, what do you want your legacy to be? And a lot of times when I'm talking to leaders and when I'm bringing this up, opens up this really completely different way. It's like, yeah, I accomplished all of this, but what are we doing now, and how are we tackling the most challenging topics or most biggest obstacles, and how we're finding solutions, and what you do, and you creating amazing legacy, not only for your family, for your children, for your generation, for your history of your family roots and where you stem from, but also for generations yet to come. And that is the power that we have right now more than ever. So do you mind sharing with our audience what are you on mission for? What is your major accomplishment or objective after all of those that you already have to really do in the near future and the years to come?
My main goal, my mission is to renovate the way that we educate. That is clear, my mission, and it's to do it at the school level and at the corporate level. And becoming an educator is someone that is empathetic, curious, and self-aware. Improving how we communicate. There are two forms of communication within all settings, all executive and university settings. We have a form of communication that is horizontal. That's
Yeah.
between our teams and between our groups. And those are typically done through text and email. Then we have a need to communicate uh, that, or we should have a need to communicate that is vertical, from top to bottom, from the person at the top leading down to the person that's the foundation of an organization. And knowing that we do have leaders in place that have a desire to want to empower and to lead, we have to improve the way that we communicate. Leaders that have the opportunity to listen to this call can change the way they're communicating with their staff by implementing vertical forms of communication. In large part, what we've seen are emails. People that are in a position of leadership will send out mass emails communicating their initiative, communicating their mission, and that mission is told in Q1, and then it's pushed to the side and somewhat evaluated, possibly maybe in Q3. In great and high performing industries, they'll review it once a quarter. In the highest performing industries, they'll perform and see it on the wall and then review it every single day. And they'll stay clear on their mission.
Brilliant.
We are in a space now where we need our leaders to share what they desire, why they desire it, and who they are. We need our leaders to form a vertical means of communication that extends beyond email. So one of the initiatives that we've begun to put into place with the groups that we're working with, because the horizontal means of communication we've seen improved through Zoom, text, email. The vertical has not been fixed. So we have been speaking to groups and creating opportunities for them to speak to the person that from the top to the bottom by encouraging them to go on spaces like Clubhouse, where they can create their own Clubhouse room and speak about their initiatives, share their concepts and their ideas with everyone within their organization, with potential customers, and with folks that are just interested in how they're going about their business. And they're beginning to have an opportunity to express their desires, their hopes, and their dreams. And more importantly, they're allowing people to stay connected to the people that are leading them. And they're giving people an opportunity to stay connected to what they believe and what they're driving so hard to create within their organization. We've spoken to groups to create this vertical means of communication by encouraging them to create podcasts that are specific to their group that don't necessarily talk about the day-to-day operations of their group or of their organization. Having leadership on a podcast and having them talk about how they overcome anxiety. What do they do to communicate? Or possibly that they feel anxious themselves, or quite possibly how they're overcoming the stress of their families and their children and expressing their loss. So creating deeper forms of vertical communication is allowing the people that you're leading to stay connected to your mission and to stay driven, but more importantly, to know that they're not in this alone, and that their leader is strong, and that their leader is visual, and that their leader is someone that's a person. But it's going to allow for those deeper communications. It's certainly over the course of a year going to improve productivity and the results, and reduce and improve retention, and improve the results of the groups that we know that our great leaders are leading.
I love what you just said, and you've tackled a couple of things that I think audience really need to grasp. We already obviously exit from 2020. We are in second month of 2021. And we need to look at and understand in what landscape we live in at the moment on a deeper, more meaningful level. The fact how many people are suicidal, the fact how many people are committing suicide, the fact how many teenagers and preteens are committing suicide versus adults, seasoned, smarter, capable, that doesn't excuse, right? But still more developed emotionally and mentally. But suffering is coming from all these levels, and including from top leadership, actually. And then also on top of it, when we see the highest percentage of disengagement and low performance right now, and where performance is down the toilet, as they say, because people are just fragmented with existing organizations, with existing systems, due to so many positions being eliminated, to virtualization, due to a lot of communication that you were mentioning, a lack of horizontal, not just obviously horizontal, sometimes even horizontal communication is missing, but vertical, as you mentioned too, and not having no saying or not knowing what's going on. As a result, creates that high anxiety you were mentioning before, and creates so much inner conflict, and it's unnecessary. As a result, we're seeing such a dire need on so many levels. And I'm so glad you brought that up, as obviously not only as an educator and executive coach and consultant, from my standpoint, also looking, from advisory side, I can't agree more with you how important it is also to tap into intelligence of your existing team members and their skill set, and create environment of trust when you really let others lead and co-lead and take a floor and take a support where they can, because more than ever shows we can do this alone. And I love that you mentioned Clubhouse also, because that's how we also met and engaged, and such a phenomenal contributor of leadership roundtables and your expertise and different point of view, because we guys cannot solve the problem. I always keep saying, not only the way it's already created, but also from the same perspective that we're trying to solve it, that is outdated, that doesn't work, and from very narrow-minded point of view. That's where we're into trouble, because we're consistently pivoting back to small inner circle people that think and act the same, and don't having that nice big holistic approach. With that in mind, do you mind in closing for today? And we will definitely have you back, and we have some really amazing, exciting things coming. And as Aleutian also shared in his here, big long comment here, we have so much that needs to be improving, but definitely that empowering mentorship, coaching, new modalities, how we approach everything in life, including education and business and entrepreneurship and coaching and mentoring, and we could go on and on and on. But what would be a message for you for today, Robert, for our audience and everybody that are listening that are part of all these systems and they feel stuck, stressed out, overwhelmed? And what would be the words of wisdom for them, what they can do that is actionable, that they can truly start pivoting and getting in the right direction? I love your sigh.
The first step is clear. As a leader of an organization, the first thing we have to do is acknowledge that we have a problem. Acknowledging that we have a problem is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. And letting your people know that you are going to find the answer. When leaders stand up and acknowledge what's directly in front of them, it allows everyone that they're leading to step into their own strength. Because the people that you're leading know that something is wrong, and they just want to know that the leader recognizes it.
Yes.
And it's okay to recognize that you also do not have the solutions, but you are going to find them. The second piece is communication. Our leaders are in a position right now where the people that they're leading need to hear from them every single day, multiple times a day, if at all possible. The human mind has a tendency to always find what's wrong. It's the wiring in our 300-year-old brain. It's the wiring.
Yes.
We are designed to always survive. So human nature will fall back to finding all of the reasons why something isn't going to work, all of the reasons why you're going to be overcome with anxiety, all the reasons why the company is going to go out of business. So we have to improve the way that we communicate. Our leadership has to improve the way that they're communicating. Zoom calls are great, and at the end of the day, at times they can bring more anxiety on people than necessary. So creating a means of communication that allows for your people to hear your voice. Begin a podcast, which is incredibly easy to create, where you cover topics and have conversations that the people that you're leading can listen in on. And you can talk about anything and anything that is on your heart and your spirit, because if it's on your heart and spirit, odds are it's probably on the people that you're leading as well. Open a clubhouse room and begin to have conversations that allow people to step into a space where they can hear other people experiencing the same exact thing. The third action item that I would encourage everyone in a position of leadership to take is that you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your mind, you have to take care of your spirit, and you have to take care of your body. And understanding that your health in those three modalities is going to be critically important to the way that you're communicating. You have to take care of your mind. So what are you doing on a daily basis to rewire yourself so you can create a positive mindset? And the only way to create a positive emotion is with motion. Emotion is created by motion. So as a leader, she has to get herself moving every single day physically, taking care of yourself nutritionally. There's 3 steps in nutrition: water, staying properly hydrated, drinking half your body weight in ounces every day, deep diaphragmatic breaths, breathing in for 1, holding for 2, exhaling for 3, aerobic fitness, walking in a way that allows you to have conversations. That is aerobic fitness. That's how you take care of yourself physically, spiritually. Meditating, active meditation. I'm not someone that can sit with 4 kids and busy family life. I don't really get too much quiet time. So active meditation has become my form of communication to myself spiritually. And I do that on my daily walks, and I do it silently. And I have an app that I listen to calm that I'll go through as well. So our leadership has the tools that our leadership is in an incredibly powerful position, because eyes are so peeled and connected to that leader and looking for guidance, and we have an opportunity to really grab hold of our organizations right now and to lead them into spaces emotionally, physically, and spiritually that they've never experienced. And I would encourage everyone, if you haven't done so already, to read. And I wrote my book in a space of empowerment, and I know from the feedback and from the folks in leadership that have picked it up and are reading it, they're finding a tremendous sense of peace and of strength in reading my book and improving how they become a more connected and educational leader.
That is brilliant. That is amazing action of items that are so pivotal and so holistic. And I'm so glad you share with us, because that's how it will help us out to get through stressors, anxiety, depression, and all this crazy stuff that we're seeing around us, so that we can be really strong and anchored and empowered, but also very powerful and able to endure, right? And persevere. So do you mind just quickly show us the glimpse of your book here that you're mentioning, and where the audience can get the copy? I will definitely make sure we get the link on the end of this interview, but I want to make sure that audience get a chance to take a glimpse of this beautiful hardcover yellow book, please.
Yeah, I'm super proud. The 12 things they wanted to teach you in high school but couldn't. It's a book written to create are the educational leaders of right now. Educational leaders that are empathetic, curious, and self-aware. Our book is available on Amazon, and we have been doing bulk orders for universities and for schools. So I have been speaking virtually for schools and universities that have purchased the book in bulk for their staff and for their people in leadership positions. And also on the corporate side, because we know that just speaking to the folks that are leading right now would be
Yes.
ignoring the future leaders of tomorrow. And the future leaders of tomorrow are going to be the way that we really shift the way that our spirits are connected to the world that we're living in right now. So we have to address our future leaders now, but to ignore the people that are leading our world now would also be a mistake. So my book is being used as a reference space for our leaders to begin to have conversations, if not themselves, bring people in, and bringing people in that can facilitate these conversations and facilitate how to overcome the stress, how to create nutritional habits, how to overcome death and grieving, which is the 12th of the 12 things that I discuss and I share in my book, on how to have not just those moments when um, feeling great, because I can personally say my parents have done an incredible job, and I'm so incredibly humbled and grateful for all that they've given my sister and I and myself. But I know that they've also done an incredible job of teaching us how to live without them. And everyone hasn't had that same fortune. My book is being used as a reference point to help folks that have lost people and they have to go back to work. How do you facilitate and bring them back into a space so they can create a sense of empowerment for themselves again and improve their productivity and their zest for life while losing people that have been so close to them during these times that are wildly unpredictable. So my book has been a space of service. My firm, Win by Design, uh, can be reached. I can be reached there at winbydesign.co, and we're doing consultations and creating immediate action items for corporate space, for corporate leaders, and for university leaders to immediately impact their staff and the people that they're leading, so we can really start to bring about change and improve the quality of the lives that we have the good fortune of being in front of every day.
Brilliant. Thank you again so much for sharing that. Congratulations on a great book that I am still reading. I started and I absolutely love it. And also for taking your time to be with us today.
Great.
I
Thank you.
know both of us are quite a bit busy, but it's important also to share. So again, thank you for giving so much value. And we'll look forward to having you soon back and sharing what we will be doing so that we can make this impact much more quicker and faster, right? So again, Robert, was absolute pleasure. And dear audience, thank you for everyone, dear LinkedIn family, for all the phenomenal participation question from Lucy and Mary. We also had Marco. We also had a couple of others. So anyway, I just want to make sure that you guys know that we're much appreciated and looking forward to a follow-up conversation. Have a great day, Robert, and stay safe in New York. You guys are getting hammered with a lot of snow there.
We are again, and it makes for a great story. So I welcome
great
the bad
memories with
weather
your heroes, I bet.
Yeah, they're embracing it while they're out shoveling. So they're embracing it. But this has been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to staying connected, and hopefully we served your audience well and gave them the tools that they need to continue to live a fruitful life. So thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Have a good one.